Right, so welcome everyone to this live webinar entitled Survival Guide to Navigating the Atlassian Marketplace. My name's Gary Blower. I'm a Senior Solution Architect with Clearvision. I'm joined here by my friend Cody. I'll let introduce themselves.
So I'm Cody Wooten. I'm the Channel Manager here at Appfire, an app vendor within the Atlassian ecosystem.
So as you can probably see from my t-shirt, I'm from Clearvision, who are Clearvision. Clearvision are a double platinum solution partner with Atlassian. We provide professional services, training, hosting. We can provide contractors, resources, the whole shebang. And as Cody mentioned, Cody's from Appfire. Do you want to give us a bit of background on Appfire, Cody?
Yeah. So Appfire, like I said, we're one of the largest app vendors in the Atlassian Marketplace with a lot of key solutions that's ready to solve a ton of problems. But mostly we're an enterprise collaboration software company where we really look to help companies plan and deliver their best work. And of course, we're grateful to be able to work with people like yourself in Clearvision, who is extremely awesome.
Thanks very much. Likewise. Now, Cody and I are here really to talk about the Atlassian Marketplace. And it's a question I get asked a lot by some of my clients. We thought we would provide some sort of general advice, general sort of overview really of the advantages of the Atlassian Marketplace and what you can gain from it. But first of all, what is the Atlassian Marketplace? Well, from my point of view, someone who helps provide solutions to our clients and our customers, it's a mechanism by which we can extend the functionality of the Atlassian tools. And there are around about 4,000 apps, I believe, on that marketplace now. From your point of view, Cody, how does Appfire fit into the Atlassian Marketplace and how do you guys see it?
Right. So how we kind of view the marketplace is that at its core, it's a place for customers to find solutions to, like you said, extend the functionality of their Atlassian suite. But it's kind of more than that, right? It's an opportunity for creators and entrepreneurs at companies of basically all sizes to create and sell products. It's going to just help improve how teams work together and stuff. So for us at Appfire, our founders have been a part of the marketplace since the very beginning, which I think was maybe 16 years ago, around aboutish and everything. So yeah, so it started small. Now we're one of the largest vendors on the marketplace. So we kind of know all about that path I was just talking about.
Exactly. And I think certainly for a lot of my customers, they sometimes find it quite daunting because it's so huge. I mean, it is for those familiar with, you got a smartphone, you're familiar with the Apple App Store or the Android's, Android Marketplace. The Atlassian Marketplace kind of works the same way. And there's various apps for the different Atlassian products, everything from Jira and Confluence through to Bitbucket and even Bamboo. But there are so many apps. The first thing I'm often asked is like, how do I know where to start looking, or what do I need to consider? What would you suggest, given Appfire's range of apps on there, where's the best place to start if you're trying to decide what it is you need to look for?
Right. So I think that there's just a few key considerations when trying to decide. First is, who is the user? So normally I know that it's the admin, and the admin's being asked for solutions by various teams within the business, and they're bugging them all the time. But for the admins that I've worked with, one of the things that they will do is look and talk to each other, to other admins, whether it's, people in the office or somebody in the Atlassian community or solution partners. But they're basically looking to find out what each other knows. They're searching the marketplace. And they're also looking at places like blogs where market leaders are recommending solutions. And actually, I got to plug this real quick. A great place to look for some of that tremendous insight into kind of the state of the marketplace is from another awesome solution partner, Blended Perspectives. If you go to their website, they do a great job of putting out kind of thought pieces and articles over kind of the state of the marketplace and all that. But another great place to really hone in on some of those considerations is to have a look on the marketplace at product videos, screencasts, webinars, documentation, basically any resource that app vendor, that third-party provider is going to have available on their listing to basically see if it's going to solve your pain points in a really user-friendly way. And like I said, you can, of course, find all this on those marketplace listings of the apps. But real quick, I want to mention that you also want to choose apps with high star ratings, recent reviews, and recent version updates, right? It's important, I think, to choose an established vendor so you'll know that you'll be supported basically in a robust and timely manner. So it's important to look at all those documentation resources that is basically just going to help with the onboarding of that app. But ultimately, your free trial period is really the best way to test if it fits with your needs. So during your trial, you get those 30 days of a free trial. You can use that time to play around with a lot of different use cases to see if the app is really right and carrying you into the future as your team and all your use cases scale, right? So use the onboarding materials that the product offers. Many of our I can speak to our products here at least. Many of our products have how-to videos, step-by-step guides, and in-app tools to give tips and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, those are some of the key considerations.
Definitely, yeah. I think the only thing I would add, the common question I get asked by my customers is, what does everyone else use? And actually, word of mouth and popularity are also good indicators. If an app is very popular, you can actually see on the marketplace how many people are actually have installed the app. If it's a very popular app, there's a good chance it's popular for a good reason, that it's a good app, right, and it solves some key challenges or provides a solution that people are looking for. So that's often a good key indicator as well. But word of mouth is also good. Obviously, you can speak to the likes of myself and other folks at Clearvision. We're always happy to try to point you in the right direction. We have great relationships, particularly with Appfire, but other vendors as well, which we can kind of steer in the right direction. But as Cody said, really, you can look at everything. And there's always interesting new ones being added all the time. So don't discount those. But obviously, the more popular the app, generally the better and more widely used it is.
And to add to that, I think it's a great kind of like piggyback on to say that's once you see a popular app, it's really easy for you to reach out to like a solution partner, or even the Atlassian community, to maybe even do a little bit of further research, because like you said, it's probably popular for a good reason. So
yeah, definitely. So there is, as Cody said, there is some research you can do. There are some things to look out for, particularly in the kind of SaaS cloud world, which we mainly operate in now. So when you're looking on the marketplace, particularly if you're looking for apps that support the Atlassian Cloud products, one of the key things you want to look for is the Cloud Fortified label. This is an initiative by Atlassian to ensure that those apps conform to the highest standards of security and governance. And in some vendors, I mean, Cody will go into a bit more detail on Appfire, but some vendors go further than that and provide additional information as well as to around their security arrangements for their app data.
Yeah, no doubt that for a lot of companies, probably something we kind of like glossed over a little bit, but something I probably should have honed in more, is that security is obviously a top priority for everybody right now, and as it should be, right? So I think it's also important to have a look at apps and vendors that are going to participate in Atlassian security programs, kind of like what you were talking about, which is the bug bounty program, the cloud security, I believe, and Cloud Fortified. Yep. I think, if I'm right, you can check out more about about who's participated in that on Atlassian.com/trust/marketplace.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I've got to plug our own trust center, because we're over the moon about this. So we just rolled out our own trust center because we know, like I was saying earlier, security and privacy compliance is becoming increasingly important to everyone. And we all know a failure to address those concerns could dramatically impact business for, well, everybody, right? So we're emphatically focused on building a strong security and privacy culture. That means that everyone at Appfire is committed to and taking responsibility for making sure that not only do we develop secure products, but that we consider security and privacy in every action that we take. So I can speak to Appfire's Trust Center real fast about what we offer with that, and why it's important to do kind of do a little bit of research on some of your third party, because you could discover something like our Trust Center, which is basically going to be acting as a centralized knowledge base for security, privacy, compliance questions for all Appfire apps. We have over 200 apps, so that's a big deal. There we've got pre-completed questionnaires that is important to a lot of people that are commonly requested, such as CAIQ, SIG, VSA. We've got integrated NDA process for protected content, the ability to submit security assessment questionnaires directly through the Trust Center, And then you can subscribe to our Trust Center and receive notifications for any of those updates and stuff. So data security, super important. Look for those Atlassian security programs. You can check out the Trust Center for Atlassian. For an app vendor like us, we have our Trust Center that you can check out. Really important, and stuff like that really makes the process a lot easier when considering and buying that.
Definitely. One other thing to sort of touch on really is the fact that the Atlassian Marketplace caters for both self-hosted and also cloud-based apps. Now, historically, because the Marketplace has been around for some time, the majority of the apps were for self-hosted solutions, what people term server and data center now. More recently, though, in the past year or two, there's definitely been rapid growth in apps available for the cloud platform. And then, of course, there are some apps that are available for both. And that provides both benefits, because it's easy for you if you're moving, say, from server to cloud. It makes that transition that much easier. But also it means that you've got some familiarity with those apps as well. But also it can create some complexity, particularly, again, if you're moving from server to cloud. Some of the apps are easier to migrate than others. Now, there's lots of information you can get to help you with that. Most vendors will provide, if there is a migration path for their app, they'll often provide documentation and advice around that. Obviously, solution partners can help as well. The other place you can look is the Atlassian community, where actual Atlassian users out there have had some experience either with configuring the app, or maybe moving from, say, a server to cloud platform and switching from the server version of the app to the cloud version of the app. They can often provide good advice. And in fact, in Clearvision, the Atlassian community is a resource that we use all the time, to help us, particularly if it's a problem we've not come across before. As a vendor, what sort of facilities are you guys providing to help, particularly with companies that are looking to maybe switch from a server-based app to a cloud-based app?
Yeah, so I can say that for a lot of our apps, we had over about 200 apps. For cloud apps, we have about 90 plus, and we're working towards bringing more and more of those over. But for us, if we're talking about a migration path, we have an app called CMJ. We also are very heavily integrated and involved with JCMA. I had a quick question for you, though, actually, on that. Do you get, speaking of building out cloud apps and stuff like that, do you see a lot of vendors building cloud first apps, or do you see a lot of basically vendors like us who a bulk of our portfolio was on-prem and build cloud later? Is that something that you're seeing? Or?
It's a trend, definitely. I would say a couple of years ago, most apps were the primary target was definitely the self-hosted server and data center. Increasingly, you're seeing apps now launch cloud first or cloud only apps. In fact, I was speaking to another vendor the other day, K15T, who do really good Confluence apps. Mm-hmm. They actually have a new app which they launched this year, which is cloud only. So I think we're starting to increasingly see, first of all, cloud only apps themselves, but also reinterpreting the way the apps work when they do port them from server to cloud. So there's some, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, there's certainly a couple of apps I've come across recently where they've taken advantage of some of the facilities they've got in cloud and are able to do more with it. For example, adding sort of greater support for automation, for example, which is native on cloud. Starting to see that more, but I would say it's increasing. I'm seeing a lot more cloud first apps now.
Well, Atlassian has definitely made a lot of great strides to help customers migrate to the cloud with their migration tools. And I know that they have a ton of great documentation to help support those customers. So whether or not to use these tools obviously depends on the complexity of your migration, where you're hosting from, and basically what kind of data you need to move. But Atlassian, I know, has a whole migration hub on their website, which I think it's like atlassian.com/migration. But I know one of the big, and you probably could speak a little bit deeper into this than I can, but I know that one of the big and more recent developments with those Atlassian migration tools is they basically unlock the ability to migrate app data.
Yep.
And I know that a lot of our apps are compatible with JCMA and CCMA, but I know that was kind of a big recent development from those tools.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. Yeah, many of the leading apps are definitely now supported by it's the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant, which is really the main one where that focus is on. And you're right, many of the Appfire apps, JSU, for example, and the workflow extensions, for example, which are two of the most popular apps out there, fully supported by the JCMA tool. And I think most of the top vendors now have provided support for their apps where they have a cloud and server equivalent for the JCMA to handle that data for them. And more are being added all the time. So it's always worth checking out the latest updates to the JCMA, and also vendors themselves providing support for that. But it certainly makes it easier for customers who are looking to migrate, that now the actual, the primary tool that's used to do the migrations actually then supports the apps as well. But obviously not every app is supported. So in those situations, it's best to reach out to the app vendor and they can provide you with assistance on that.
Well, and speaking of that, I have to say this too, because this is something that was that we recently published, and it was really awesome in talking about that support on helping with your migration. Is that we worked with an Atlassian Titan, Rachel Wright. She's the author of Jira Strategy, super well-known Jira expert in the Atlassian ecosystem. But basically, we published an ebook alongside her called The Ultimate Guide to Jira Migrations, which you can find on appfire.com. You can find on our website. It's a 200+ page ebook full of planning tools, checklists, guides, and worksheets, and all that kind of good stuff. Basically, it's a book chock full of ways to help you understand, plan, and execute on your migrations and stuff. So I'd highly recommend checking that out. You can imagine 200+ pages. That's chock full of information. That's tough for me to get through 50 pages. But
oh, excellent. Yes, thanks for that. Right, should we round up by just picking some of our favorite apps that people might want to check out? That might be a fun thing to do. So we've got down here on it says the must-have apps for Jira and Confluence. So I'll start. I'm just going to name two because there are thousands, but there's two I'd quite like to highlight, which people may or may not know about. So the first one is for Confluence. Now, I'm mainly involved in IT service management and in Jira service management. So Confluence is obviously something I make use of a lot with my clients to do with knowledge management. And one of the use cases that comes up a lot is actually controlling that documentation, particularly where I've got clients where there's heavy governance, or where the documentation itself is, say, policy documentation that they want to surface through the knowledge base and through their customer service portals. Then Kamala Document Management, which is actually Kamala Tech, which is now part of Appfire, is invaluable, really. It allows you to put an extra layer of management and control over your documentation in Confluence. Allows you to have approval workflows and things like that on the pages, which is really important if you're in a heavily governed environment or you're looking to provide policy documentation or guidelines. So that's a pick for me on Confluence, really. And on Jira, it's actually one that I use rather than ones that it comes up a lot in conversation with customers, or it does come up occasionally. But I do a lot of training, and we use a cloud training environment. And when we run training courses, we're creating a lot of dummy data. We're creating insight schemas, and we're creating JSD projects and Jira Service Management projects and Jira software projects. And after a training course is run, there's normally carnage on the site, as you can imagine. So one of the tools I use, actually, funny enough, it is another coincidence, but it is another Appfire product. It's the Bob Swift command line utility, which is great for a Jira admin to just run a few scripts to then just trash and remove all that data that was created. Now, I used that in my previous role, actually, in my previous company, where I was a Jira admin for around about 4,000 users. And it was just a useful tool for me just to run common cleanup tasks within Jira. And I still use it today, but mainly really for post-training cleanup, really. What about yourself, Cody?
I want to say real quick. I know Bob would love hearing that, so I hope he gets to check this out. Yeah, he'll love that. But so with all the apps that we have, it's kind of like picking your favorite children. So I'll kind of give from our customer's perspective a little bit, and just name out a few that we believe are must-have apps. So from our customer's perspective, for workflow automation, JMWE and JSU are absolute favorites. They have been for a while. Talk about the popularity of apps. That's definitely some apps in the ecosystem that are really popular. For project portfolio management, we think it doesn't get much better than Big Picture. Speaking of Bob Swift apps, though, Advanced Tables and Multi-Excerpt, they've been around for a while and used by tons of different teams, and they have plenty of use cases within Confluence, right? Like, if you want to do more with your Confluence tables, like add formatting or pull in extra external data, and you want consistency across all those content pages, and those are the apps for you. Numbered Headings is actually a super popular app within our portfolio with a pretty simple but extremely super powerful use case, which is automatically number headings in Confluence pages. But I could go on and on for that. We have 9 different categories of apps across both Jira and Confluence. So speaking of doing research and just checking things out, I have to recommend going to our website and seeing more about kind of what we offer and all that kind of good stuff.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Cody. I suppose one final thing is, if you've gone out there, you bought your app and you're starting to use it, and you're looking for, particularly just one of the bigger apps. I mean, Big Picture springs to mind actually, which is one of the biggest products you can get as a standalone app. Training is a question that comes up a lot. Now, I know you and I, Cody, have spoken about this because I've done a bit of Big Picture training myself. Right. But as a vendor, is it something now that there's more focus on in terms of actually providing training material and training resources for your customers?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I'll say first, as kind of like a marketplace as a whole, that a lot of that training availability really depends on the vendor, right? So I've said this 6 times now, but I got to say it again. But recommend kind of going to the documentation or the website of the app that you're looking to see and see kind of what's available. Many vendors, us included, offer tutorial videos, step-by-step guides, a bunch of other resources basically to get you acquainted with the app. So, and also at Appfire, we have a super responsive. This is something I think we sometimes don't always talk about, but at Appfire, we have a super responsive and helpful support team that's basically standing by to answer any questions that you have about the apps and our platforms. But I have to say, I think most importantly, a lot of our partners like Clearvision, like Gary, who is so freaking awesome, they do it. You guys do an absolute fantastic job with training. So I would highly recommend reaching out to folks like you and Clearvision to help make you super smarter.
Thanks very much for that, Cody. Right. Okay. So that's our kind of general survival guide. We're happy to take any questions there might be in the chat. So I'm just going to give it a few seconds for anyone who wants to put a question in the chat, then please do.
I was waiting to see if anybody asked about your board games back there.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the questions on those at the end when we stop recording. Are all marketplace apps available for cloud and self-managed installations? The answer is no. Particularly older apps are more likely to be just server only, server and data center only. The other thing to bear in mind is that some of the more advanced apps that again are quite old would probably require access to low-level features or low-level access to the Atlassian products like Jira and Confluence. Some of them, for example, will manipulate files on the actual system itself. So not all legacy apps, let's call them that, necessarily can easily be ported to cloud. But certainly of the most popular apps, the vast majority now both have a server and a cloud version. And if they don't, they tend to have like a cloud equivalent, which provides similar functionality. It might have a slightly different name, but sometimes provides more functionality. It varies. So if you've got anything else to add to that one, Cody?
Nope. I think you hit that one right on the head. Yep.
So we've got another one from Dan. What app functionality is Appfire most looking forward to releasing soon?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of give 2, and then I'll kind of give a general answer for both. But Big Picture is going to be releasing some stuff soon that's going to be really awesome. I think it was the 8.3 release. It released not too long ago, and we've got the next release coming up soon. But also another app that we're really excited about that we're adding to constantly is our Whiteboards app, which you can see at whiteboards.io. We're really trying to add to basically whiteboards and make it a little bit more powerful on top of that deep Jira integration that it has. So those would probably be the two that we're most excited about.
Excellent. Okay. And Dan also said, are Appfire bringing a public roadmap for all of the portfolio like Atlassian release?
Yes, we in the future, yes.
Okay, excellent. Carl's asked a really good question, and I'm racking my brain to try and remember what it's called. But Carl said, do you know of any apps that can assist with test dev to live deployments? I'm assuming this is in tracking test to dev to live deployments rather than having multiple Atlassian tool environments. I'm trying to remember the name of it. We might have to let you know afterwards, but I don't know if you know one, Cody.
I'd have to get for that particular thing. I'd have to go back to our product team, which Kyle, I can get you. I'll give you my email. I'll get you an answer.
Yeah, there we go. I've definitely seen one anyway that does something similar. The other thing to bear in mind is if you're a Jira Service Management Premium customer, then you can do some of that through its integration with Bitbucket and GitLab. So there is a bit of that functionality that you could use, but not potentially to the extent that you're talking about there. Someone else says, can the marketplace apps make my products slower? I think if we're talking cloud, it's unlikely. If we're talking self-hosted, some of the larger apps may have additional memory requirements in order for them to work well. Back in the day, before Atlassian acquired Mindville and Insight was a marketplace app. Insight needed a lot more memory for Jira to run successfully. So that was an example of where, it was a really powerful app, and so it needed its own resources really to work properly. I'm trying to think of other examples. I think to a certain extent, I think EasyBI, which is another well-known and widely regarded reporting app. I think if that's self-hosted, you can sometimes provide that with extra resources to give it a bit more kick. But generally, they don't. If you have lots of apps, particularly on a self-hosted, that can also sometimes be an issue, but they're not supposed to, is the answer. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Cody.
No, yeah, I know you're a lot closer to that than I am, so yeah, I don't have anything to add.
It's quite rare now, particularly for clouds. It's very unlikely on cloud, and I've not come across it too often on self-hosted, only with some of the larger apps, if I'm honest. So we've got another question. What services does Clearvision provide marketplace users? So we actually maintain internally, we have a team of professional services and consultants and trainers. So within our team, we maintain a list of around about 45 to 50 of the most popular marketplace apps that we ensure we keep up to date with, and that we're able to do coaching, mentoring, and training on, basically. So Cody mentioned Big Picture, that's one of them. There are others as well. Certainly most of the leading apps on the marketplace, X-Ray, Zephyr for testing, for example. We make sure that we've got coverage within Clearvision within the team, so that we're able to provide coaching and mentoring and best practice around that. And we actually work with the app vendors on that. We have partnerships with a lot of the leading app vendors where we can ensure that our teams are brought up to speed. As I mentioned, we actually had a session on Monday with K15T on some of their apps with our team. But obviously with 4,000 apps in the marketplace, we can't necessarily cover them all, but we certainly cover the top 50, if you want to think of it that way.
Yep.
Okay.
Would highly recommend reaching out to Clearvision to talk even deeper about that. Awesome people.
Yeah. So the only other question I've got, I think, is from your colleague, Cody. Is it Kerry? Mentioned about a video that you've published.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see the link there. I was looking at the Q&A, but yeah, that's a video that Kelsey Lemasters, who is our PMM over our admin tools category, which includes CMJ, our migration app, amongst many things. But yeah, you can check it out because it's going to help talk about how the changes move through test and staging, and you can find that on the hub, which is our resource that we've built out that's basically brings all the knowledge, all the awesome stuff of all things Atlassian, puts it one area. So check out that link.
Another question, are there any risks using apps that aren't cloud fortified? If so, how big? That's tricky. I mean,
I was going to let you answer that one for sure.
Yeah. You should really do, I mean, as with any piece of software, you have to kind of do your due diligence. And so you should really do an information security risk assessment against anything. Now, if they're cloud fortified, essentially what the vendor has done that for you, and you can read all the documentation on that. If they're a smaller vendor, they may not be able to, if they're a startup and it's one guy on his own or something, they may not have the facility to do that. So what you can also do, you obviously reach out to the vendor to ask them what they have done. There are certain procedures you can follow to judge whether there's any kind of risk. The key thing being whether any data is not held within the Atlassian ecosystem itself. Many of the cloud apps can now store their data within Atlassian's cloud, and they have to go through various mechanisms to do that. So that would be more secure than, say, if the app vendor was hosting the data themselves. If they were hosting the data themselves and they weren't cloud fortified, then I think you've got to do quite a bit of due diligence then on that. Got any more questions? There's another question in the chat box from Michael. Michael, is this the ball game question? Do I have the game Pandemic? And if you do, is it too soon to play again? I do. It's down here. Have I played it recently? I have played it during the pandemic. The interesting thing is the way that, if you've ever played that game, the way the cubes spread on the map of the world is very similar to how COVID spread. But yeah, I have played it during the pandemic, and a lot of people do actually. And in fact, there's lots of different versions of Pandemic out there now. So yeah,
I've just played Pandemic in real life.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Just check once more to see if there are any more questions. Just checking. I think we are done. So there's no more questions. We'll close things there. So all it really leaves me to do is to thank Cody for joining me today in the webinar.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. Always a good time. Always.
And I've been Gary Blower at Clearvision. If you have any questions or anything like that, then you can always follow up with either myself or Cody. I think social links and all that sort of stuff will be published with the webinar. So yeah, get in touch with us if you have any questions. Thanks for attending, and hope to speak to you all soon.